The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.
Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com.
Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242
or visit tomsbeets.com.
And welcome back. Day 4. This is Thursday. It's the first week of our Free Speech TV fundraising drive. We are way behind. I mean, we hit a little over $4,000 yesterday. Thank you so much for those of you who did call, 877-378-8669. It is much appreciated. $10 contributions, $50 contributions, $300, whatever. It's sort of the parable of the widow's mite. I mean, it's whatever is comfortable for you to give, whatever you can afford to give. I don't want you to put yourself in a bad way or anything. But Free Speech TV needs the help. This is what keeps the lights on. This is what keeps the electrons flowing, and this is what maintains really the last independent television in the United States. Now we have, I think there's 3 right-wing channels, 2 of them that are appearing on satellite TV, and 1 on cable and on the internet, that are funded by wealthy right-wing billionaires and all this sort of thing, and then you've got the major networks that are funded by the family that owns Comcast, a bunch of right-wingers, or which owns NBC, or Time Warner and CNN, and obviously billionaire Murdoch and Fox. And so it's like, all these right-wing channels and supposedly, in the middle channels that are owned by giant corporations that have right-wing. And then there's Free Speech TV. I mean, this is an extraordinary thing. So please call now and make your contribution. Operators are standing by, as they say, and you may well be talking to just, one of the people who works at Free Speech TV. In fact, I think that's probably who you would, in all cases, who you'll be talking to. By the way, Greg from Ohio has put up a $1,200 matching grant today. So the first $1,200 in donations based on our program will be matched. So your donation, whatever it is, up to $1,200 will be doubled. So that's a great thing. And Greg, thank you for that. And we've got some swag, some gifts for people who, in exchange for contributions, with a $60 contribution, which would be $5 a month or $60 up front, a pocket Constitution, the Constitution of the United States. This is the ACLU version. So there's some nice little commentary in there. If you're arrested or taken to a police station, in your home, if you're suspected of, if you're stopped in your car, if you're stopped for questioning, it's not just the Constitution. Plus, there's these 2 cards, one for gay kids going off to college, basically, and the other for protesters. And it's these Know Your Right cards, and so that comes with a $60 gift. With a $120 gift, Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States, with a $120 gift. With a $240 gift, you get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? And subtitled A Return to Democracy. And you also get the Pocket Constitution and the Know Your Rights at Protest, or LGBTQ wallet size Know Your Rights, and the Free Speech TV sticker. With a $360 gift, we're back to Howard Zinn, The People's History of the United States, The Voices of the People's History, the Pocket Constitution, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Washington, D.C., and I'll buy you lunch. And, we can spend an hour together and hang out and whatever you'd like to talk about. So those are, that's what's going on. That's the matching amount from Greg in Ohio. Again, Greg, thank you for that. And up to $1,200. And thank you. If you've already called, if you've been one of the folks who've called, we've raised so far, I think about, let's see, 3,000 on Monday, 6,000 on Tuesday, 4,000 yesterday. What is that, around $13,000 out of our $30,000 goal for our first 3 days. So you can see we're a little less than half of where we need to be. But thank you, or and thank you to the folks who got us this far. I mean, that's still pretty good, but we need to really catch up. We've got a long way to go. We don't want this fund drive to stretch out, and we do need to keep the lights on and keep the electrons flowing and keep this program and this network coming into your home. I mean, we really do. And there's great people working at Free Speech TV. They work their butts off. The people here, I'll tell you, Chris and Troy and Nate and Sean and Louise, and we all work our butts off. We do. I think we're doing pretty good programming, and I think Free Speech TV is doing brilliant programming, and it's all for you and for our country. We believe in that Jeffersonian idea of a well-educated and well-informed populace being essential to democracy. So call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Other than a quick debate we're going to have at the top of the next hour about whether it's appropriate in Wisconsin for the governor, Scott Walker, to request that Medicaid recipients be drug tested and be denied their access to health care if they are using drugs, which seems like so nonsensical if you consider drug abuse to be a medical problem. But in any case, we'll get into that at the top of the next hour. Other than that, it's Anything Goes Friday. So if there's anything you want to talk about, anything on your mind, give us a shout. 202-808-9925. The British elections were held. Theresa May is trying to form a government. Oddly enough, she's trying to do it with the party that emerged out of Ian Paisley's efforts in Northern Ireland. This is the Unionists, the biggest of the Unionist parties in Northern Ireland. These are people who are whose ancestors, who are the descendants of the Brits who had conquered and controlled Ireland, and they are Protestant. They don't like the Catholics who occupy most of the rest of Ireland. Well, they occupy Ireland. This is Northern Ireland, which is now arguably a separate country. The party has long historic links to paramilitary groups and whatnot. Their principal platforms are against gay marriage and gay rights in general, and also against women's right to choose an abortion or even get birth control. This is an extremely right-wing party, and this is who Theresa May is gonna get into bed with. We'll see where this one goes. Meanwhile, Jeremy Corbyn, the kind of Bernie Sanders of the UK, who damn near won, which is amazing. I mean, he's always been kind of viewed as this fringe figure. Keep in mind, in the UK, with the exception of The Guardian, which is, a nonprofit and just kind of getting by, and The Independent, which is, sort of in the middle, all of the newspaper, I mean, the Times of London is owned by Rupert Murdoch. It's like all of the media is on the side of the conservatives. And there basically isn't any labor media in the United Kingdom anymore of any great consequence. Margaret Thatcher started the war on the unions by busting the coal union, the largest and strongest union in the UK, as her first act of office in 1978. So it's interesting. And here's Jeremy Corbyn. This is a little clip that, in fact, I retweeted it this morning. That came to us over Twitter. Jeremy Corbyn speaking to the people of the UK, thanking them for the vote that nearly made him prime minister, and might still, if Theresa May can't pull off this coalition. We'll see. But here's Jeremy Corbyn.
I would like to thank every single person who voted for the Labour Party yesterday. The first-time voter, the lifelong Labour voter, the lifelong Conservative voter, the young person, everyone, every person who voted Labour. Your vote for us was a vote for change, and a vote for our country, and a vote for hope.
And then he gets into the
Theresa May
specifics.
called this general election in her party's interests, not in the interests of our country. She thought that with the backing of the billionaires and the corporate elite, she could take your vote for granted. But she underestimated the Labour Party, and more importantly, she underestimated you. Now, the Prime Minister has no authority, and the Conservatives have no mandate to privatise and cut our NHS, cut school funding, no mandate to cut a single police officer, and she certainly does not have a mandate to cut pensioners' winter fuel allowance or take free school meals away from a single child. Nor do they have a mandate for their race-to-the-bottom Brexit, instead of the jobs-first Brexit backed by Labour. While the Conservatives offer cuts and ran a campaign of fear, Labour is determined to invest in you and your family. We offer real hope. Under a Labour government, we will invest in our communities, our hospitals, our schools, our police, and our emergency services. Labour has made gains in every region and nation of Britain. With your help, working together, unified behind a common purpose, we can win, and we will win. And we'll build a country that works for the many, not the few.
For the many, not the few. That's the title of Robert Reich's book. Yeah, it's. I'm not sure if it's a quote from Karl Marx or not, but it's a great quote anyway. So that's Jeremy Corbyn, and that's what happened in the UK. Just an FYI. Science news. This from a British paper, the Rodney and Otamata Times, from the Waitemata and Kapura Gazette. This is a little newspaper in the United Kingdom. The article is titled "Coal Consumption Affecting Climate." Now remember that, the title, Coal Consumption Affecting Climate. In just a minute, I'm going to tell you what year this was published. It's going to blow your mind. The article starts out, the furnaces of the world are now burning about 2 billion tons of coal a year. When this is burned, uniting with oxygen, it adds about 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. This tends to make the air a more effective blanket to keep heat into the earth. In other words, it's an article about how burning coal is causing climate change and global warming. It was published August 14th, 1912. Stepping into the Wayback Machine to July 26, 1920, H.L. Mencken in the Baltimore Evening Sun wrote, as democracy is, now keep in mind, as H.L. Mencken was writing this, a guy by the name of Warren Harding, sort of the Donald Trump of the era, he was more the Paul Ryan of the era, was running for president on the twin platform of more business in government and less government in business. In other words, privatize and deregulate. And cutting taxes will help us all. In other words, trickle-down economics. And Harding, when he was elected president, he dropped the top tax rate from 91% down to 25%, and thus kicked off the so-called Roaring '20s, the stock market bubble that burst in October of 1929. creating what was referred to until the mid-1940s as the Republican Great Depression. Finally, Republicans got them to take the word Republican out of it and just say Great Depression. But anyhow, H.L. Mencken, the famous newspaper man, this was July 26, 1920, during the Harding, when Harding was running for president. He says, as democracy is perfected, and now, I think he was talking about Warren Harding, but some friends of mine think he was like, this visionary who has seen Donald Trump. Who knows? As democracy is perfected, the office of the president represents more and more closely the inner soul of the American people. On some great and glorious day, the plain folks of the land will reach their heart's desire at last, and the White House will be occupied by a downright fool and complete narcissistic moron. I should have checked the Baltimore Evening Sun and made sure that that's not an apocryphal quote. I'm taking this from a friend of mine at face value. But there is a state representative in Wisconsin, Jesse Kremer, who a Christian extremist, who is the author of a controversial campus free speech bill, in quotes, that would basically turn you into a criminal if you protest right-wingers speaking on campus. And he said he wants the University of Wisconsin system to be neutral on controversies of the day. For example, if the Earth is only 6,000 years old. All right. This is the guy who, I'm serious. I'm not making this up. He says, the United States is a Christian nation. He says the Earth is 6,000 years old. That's a fact. Wisconsin State Representative Jesse Kremer, Kremer. This, a Republican, of course. Come on. Oh man, what can you expect? So, a few other things here that I wanted to share with you. The Republicans yesterday, of course, voted to kill off Dodd-Frank and the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which has saved you and me, working people, consumers, over nearly $30 billion, and returned it to us from the banksters who stole it from us. The Republicans are very upset about that, and they want to shut it down. They think the banksters should be able to rob working people without limit. I mean, who cares, right? And this sweeping deregulation bill, in fact, the author of the bill, fierce fiscal conservative, this is from Victoria Jones's newsletter, and House Financial Services Chairman Representative Jeb Hensarling, our Texas, says he hopes parts of it will become law during this session of Congress. Right. And reality winner, the young woman who leaked the dossier, whatever, the NSA report that Russia was trying to hack our elections. She was denied bail, and she's an former Air Force linguist who speaks Farsi and Arabic, and they denied her bail based on in part on a phone call she had with her mother, where she said those documents, that's why I'm in trouble. And the government is saying because there was an S in the end of the word document, she's got more stuff that she might release or whatever. And it's just, we need some strong whistleblower laws in this country. I'm not sure if she's a whistleblower or not. I don't know enough about the case, frankly, but we need strong whistleblower protection. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday. Pick up your calls right after the break here and find out what's on your mind today. I've got some more news as we go through the day as well.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And thanks to Troy and the Google machine, the H.L. Mencken quote is actually real. I'm amazed. The narcissistic, he actually wrote that in 1920. Yep, there it is.
And welcome back. Remarkable. Jordan in Dunham, North Carolina, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Jordan, what's on your mind today?
Well, I want to talk about Prime Minister. I mean, I feel like she shouldn't leave.
About who?
The British Prime Minister.
The British Prime Minister? Oh, Theresa May?
Yep.
You think she should not leave? Well, they had an election and she did not win a majority, an outright majority, so she and her party are going to have to form a coalition with one of the other smaller parties and try to govern, and that's what they're doing right now. She's gotten permission from the Queen to try to to form a government, and if she can't pull it off, then it goes to Corbyn. But what was your point, Jordan?
Well, can I ask you another question?
Sure.
What did you think of the Comey testimony?
I thought it was pretty compelling. James Comey is a very good showman. He certainly knows what he's doing. He knows how to present himself in public. I think that the important stuff was the stuff that he wouldn't talk about, where he said, they asked about Jeff Sessions. Is there something going on here that we need to know about? And he said, I won't talk about that in public. They asked him straight up if the president, when they said, at the time, were you investigating the president criminally? And he said no. But then they asked him, is the president under investigation now? And again, he said, I can't talk about that. And so it seems to me that the most important part of what Comey said yesterday are the things that he refused to say, is my take on it. Jordan, I got to move along, but thanks for the call. It's nice to hear from you. Philip in Baltimore, Maryland. Hey, Philip, what's on your mind today?
Hi, I'm calling from Baltimore and two blocks from H.L. Mencken's house, actually.
Oh, really? What a coincidence.
And that sounds like something he would have said.
Yeah.
So my question is about what do you think about Ben Jealous running for governor of Maryland? Is he as liberal as he came across? Could he be the next Bernie, a black Bernie in Maryland? And Maryland being the state it is, he can actually, if he is elected, can get a lot of stuff done because we are we're a very liberal state and we're a very wealthy state. So we would go to $15 an hour, I'm sure, and stick leaving the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Is he as good as that, or is he everything he looks to be? I don't know. I only what Amy Goodman did on him last week, and it sounded wonderful.
Yeah, I'm no Ben Jealous scholar. I've met him a few times. He's been a guest on my show a few times. He used to be the head of the NAACP, wasn't he? As I recall.
Yeah, he seems like a real smart guy too.
Yeah, and he's wicked smart. I can tell you that for sure. Just from sitting in a room with him. I mean, the guy is just everything I know about him tells me that he could be the next Bernie, or he could be the next whatever. I mean, it doesn't need to be a Bernie. He could be a successful political figure. I don't know that he's ever run for elected office though, other than
he's running for governor of Maryland. He is running.
Right. But I mean, in the past, I don't think he's ever run for it. Held. But I frankly, I would support him, given everything I know about him. I'm not a Ben Jealous authority, but I can tell you from having met him and talked to him a number of times over the years on this program and other venues, he strikes me as a very, very smart and very decent man. Philip, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be right back. Hey,
I'm Valerie with Free Speech TV. We're proud to provide you with independent, unfiltered news and documentaries. And as our valued viewer, you can help us continue bringing Free Speech TV well into the future. Join our Pearly Gate Rebels, our planned giving program. Your gift of any size will help ensure democracy endures through an informed citizenry. You can donate property, money, or assets. It's easy. My spouse and I are proud Pearly Gate Rebels. We're doing our part to ensure that Free Speech TV will be here to deliver thought-provoking news and information well into the future. Join us. Call 877-378-8669 or email me at valerie@freespeech.org. Rebel against media owned by billionaires and become one of our pearly gate rebels today.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Trump and Comey engaged in a fight going on right now. I mean, Comey said it yesterday. He said Trump was a liar and used that word. And so Trump today is out there going, Comey, he's a liar. Hey, who are you going to believe, right? I'm not a huge fan of Jim Comey. I mean, I thought what he did standing up to, on behalf of Ashcroft, standing up to Alberto Gonzalez back in the day. And, we played the clips of it on this show when it happened back, I think it was 2005, 2006, whatever it was, when Ashcroft, Attorney General Ashcroft was in the hospital and was pretty much out of it, just doped up out of it. And Gonzalez wanted to get him to sign off on some, torture memo or, I don't think it was torture, actually. I think it was spying on people. And Comey stood there and said, no, you can't do that. I'm not going to let him do it. Comey was the number 2 guy. And, he drove like a maniac, breaking the speed limit and everything through Washington, D.C. to get to the hospital to catch Gonzalez and all that. That was his shining moment in my mind. His not so shining moment was, the way that he treated Hillary Clinton and her campaign during the election. Pointing out that she was under investigation and then pointing out that they had found nothing wrong. Both of those actually hurt. And then, the whole Anthony Weiner thing, really hurt. And all during that time, the Trump campaign was actually under investigation. Trump himself apparently not, but his campaign. And Comey never bothered to tell us a word about it, which, might have had some influence on the election. So anyhow, now we're seeing, Comey, now we're seeing Trump say, Comey's a liar. So, who are you going to believe? The head of the FBI who, I'm not sure I could say that he's ever lied. I mean, I guess a lie by omission, not telling us during the election that the Trump campaign was being looked into for collusion with a foreign power. But But, who are you going to believe, Comey or Trump? Gee, that's a real tough one, That's just a real tough one. I mean, Donald Trump just so consistently tells that they've documented over 500 lies now, specific lies, since he became president. It's pretty extraordinary. So, we'll see where it goes. We'll see where this goes. I think the biggest outcome from Comey's testimony is not what he said, but what he didn't say. He refused to say that Trump is no longer under investigation. He refused to say that Jeff Sessions is no longer in legal jeopardy. And, we'll see what Bob Mueller looks into. Now, keep in mind, Mueller was the guy who, when the NFL was having all their problems with the sexual abuse scandals, he basically cleared the NFL. So
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Mueller might be really great at doing an investigation, or he might be really great at doing a whitewash. He has a history of both, the opinion of some. And welcome back. Free Speech TV, this is the last day this week. I think we're going to continue next week, but hey, help us hit some goals here. By the way, great news. A donor named Steve has put up and thank you, Steve, has put up a $10,000 matching pledge, which means that your gift, every donation up to $10,000 will be doubled. This is really a big deal. So call now, 877-378-8669. And your $10 becomes $20, your $100 becomes $200, your $500 becomes $1,000. Ultimately,
not specifically for the purposes of the gifts of the swag, but in terms of what ends up with Free Speech TV. So this is great news, and hopefully it'll help us get a little bit back closer toward meeting our goals for this fund drive. I mean, we're still way behind. So please call now, 877-378-8669. With a $60 gift, you get a Constitution of the United States from the ACLU, complete with instructions of how to react if you are stopped by the police. Plus, we've got these cards for LGBT students at college and for protesters at demonstrations. Know Your Rights, published by the ACLU. So you know what your rights are. That's with a $60 gift, or $5 a month for a year. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for a year, you get a copy of Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? And a pocket constitution, and the Know Your Rights at Protest, or the LGBTQ Know Your Rights, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $360 gift, which is $30 a month, the $240 would be $20 a month. With a $360 gift, you get the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the U.S., the Voices of the People's History, the Pocket Constitution, the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $1,000 gift, come on in, drop by Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful city, beautiful time of year. The summer here is just extraordinary. And it can get hot, but I kind of enjoy that, actually. Come on down to Washington, D.C., or up or over or whatever it may be for you, and I'll buy you lunch. So, but the important thing is not so much, what kind of swag you're going to get, what kind of gifts you can make off with, but that you're helping keep in place independent media. For example, yesterday, the House of Representatives, I talked about this several times yesterday. In fact, I gave out the number to the Congressional Switchboard and asked people to call your member of Congress because Congress, the House of Representatives yesterday voted to roll back Dodd-Frank and basically eliminate or defenestrate the consumer protection, Financial Consumer Protection Bureau, Elizabeth Warren's creation that has recovered more than $20 billion in money stolen from you and me, from people who have invested their money with people in the investment industry, and we've gotten ripped off. That agency has recovered over $20 billion and given it back to consumers. They recovered that money from the big banks. Big banks are not happy about that, so they go to their Republican toadies and they say, pass a bill that does away with this thing. Will not someone, rid me of this meddlesome priest, or was it tiresome, whatever it was. And so the Republicans say, well, of course, Mr. Billionaire, we'd be more than glad to help. Right. So that message somehow didn't happen yesterday on the corporate media. Nobody talked about it. As I said, we talked about it here. I'm sure it was talked about on other programs on Free Speech TV. There were a number of things that happened yesterday. Ryan Zinke used to be the congressman from, Montana, I think. And he's now the Secretary of the Interior. He wants to cut by 80% the programs that have to do with climate change relative to the Department of Interior. And he was being questioned by Congress yesterday, and he was going on and on about how, well, we don't know, the science is not conclusive, and we're, giving this normal climate denier BS. And it got no coverage. Nobody in the media picked it up. It happened after we got off the air. I didn't mention it on this program. I'm mentioning it now. But, there's stuff going on that we just, we're not being told about in the corporate media. But Free Speech TV is here. Free Speech TV is doing an extraordinary job with a wide variety of diverse programming and, news-based stuff. This network is really important. And you can be proud to be a part of it. So call now, 877-378-8669. Call now, please. Make a contribution, whatever works for you. Please. Need your help.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you on Anything Goes Friday. Let's pick up your calls and see what's going on in the world today and in your minds and mine. Carl in Seattle, Washington. Hey, Carl, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Yes, a long-time listener, and I want to run by something with you. Just recently in the New York Times, they discovered hominids 300,000 years old. They had tools, they had spear points, and everything like that.
Yeah, I have the article right in front of me by Ian Sample, the science editor. It's actually it was originally in the Guardian. Well, I guess the Guardian. Excuse me. The article I've got is in the Guardian, but they're both referencing the same study. Yeah. Right.
And I'm thinking that they're the first ones discovered. There's been 26 hominids that roam the earth, and they were the last ape standing. There's actually a book about that. Mm-hmm. And here we got, all these years later, we got a Donald Trump president, and then 63 million people decided that he leads the free world.
Yeah.
Country of the free. And I can't figure that out. Why all these years of evolution that we've gotten back to the point where, what do we want? You know, we got this big brain. That's what got us all these years in existence.
Yeah.
And now we want a father figure. Is this some tribal thing that we're reverting back into the past, that we need a father figure to save the day? Like, have you noticed all the hero movies lately?
Yeah.
Like,
well, there's been, the hero deification and the idea of salvationism, that somebody will save us from ourselves or save us individually, is as old as humanity. It's taken a lot of different forms over the years and different religions and, different political systems and whatnot, but it's as old as humanity. Good. But in terms of the oldest Homo sapiens bones, I don't know how far you read into the study, but the thing that I found was fascinating was that their brains were not as round as our brains are, or they were rounder. And in any case, they were shaped. They were the same size, and they seemed to be relatively pretty much like us. But they weren't exactly like us, and their brains were in a slightly different place in their skulls. And nobody knows, how that influenced how they thought or how they processed things. And Neanderthals' brains were 100 cc's larger than Homo sapiens. They actually had bigger brains than we do. So maybe we're the evolutionary throwbacks. Who knows?
Well, what worries me is that, like, before World War II, they had, when the Jews were starting to get prosecuted in Europe, Superman came out, and it was apparently Jewish writers. They said they needed some sort of hero to save the day, and I just got this feeling there's something in our brain that says that we're in trouble for some reason, and we're looking for some leader, but you know how it is. These leaders they're false prophets is what they are. This Donald Trump, I talk to people all the time. The reason he's popular is because they see him on TV.
Well, that's part of it. The other part of it is, for a superhero to be successful, that superhero has to have an arch enemy. If you didn't have Satan, you wouldn't have Jesus. If you didn't have Lex Luthor, you wouldn't have Superman. And so Donald Trump set Barack Obama and liberals, Democrats up, but principally Obama. The whole Republican effort to emphasize the darkening of America, and particularly of the Democratic Party. And you'll notice on Fox News, for example, I've been dipping into Fox News more and more just to see what they're saying. And 9 times out of 10, in my experience, I have no idea what the actual proportions are, but 9 times out of 10, when they have somebody on who's a liberal or a Democrat, they try to get a person of color. And it's like this whole, trying to create an enemy for white middle America, basically. And, playing on old racial stereotypes or racial animosities. Trump certainly was doing that with Obama's from Kenya. We got to destroy Obamacare. This is the problem that the Republicans have,
is that they have been brought to power by the force of grievance and the other. And now that they have power, you can't govern based on how much you hate the other guy. You have to govern based on actual positive ideas that will move the country forward. And the only ideas that the Republicans have are transfer more wealth from working people to the billionaires. That's it. And cut the taxes on the billionaires and cut services to working people so there's more money for tax cuts to billionaires. And that's it. I mean, it's just, and the corporations that make the billionaires. And I think the people are getting wise to them. But in that context, the election of Donald Trump itself was salvationistic thinking, in my opinion. It was Americans saying, we want a change. We're sick and tired of how things are going, and not realizing that things are going the way that they're going in the Republican Party wholly, in the Democratic Party partially, in Congress hugely, and in state house after state house. They're going the way they're going because of money in politics, and the money is there in politics because the Supreme Court inserted it. I mean, Congress actually took it out in 1973 after the Nixon scandals, 73 and 74. And by 76, you had, Lewis Powell in the Buckley decision ruled that a billionaire giving money to a politician was not a behavior that could be regulated by government, but was in fact free speech, guaranteed by the First Amendment that can't be regulated. And that led, there's a straight line from that to Citizens United and McCutcheon. So, here we are, Carl, and this is the problem. And I get the funny reference to Donald Trump as being an evolutionary throwback. But to look at it very seriously, this is not a moment that could not have been predicted. Carl, I got to move along, but thanks for the call and thanks for listening to us. Michael in Bronx, New York. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, I'm Tom. First off, a few days ago, I celebrated my 50th birthday.
Well, happy 50, Michael.
Thank you so much, buddy. And I say that in case there are some Republicans or right-wingers that are listening with a clear message that I wasn't born yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I take that with the Comey situation in the hearing. I thought he did doggone well. He really exposed a lot about Trump, about Pence, about Sessions, and who knows what else will come up in this investigation. I'm sick and tired of Republicans trying to point out that, Comey said that Trump wasn't under investigation. That understand something, that was then, this is now, and the investigation has been ongoing. Right. And between the two time periods, there's been a lot of revelations, and Trump himself being on audio and video, if people go to YouTube, about some of the controversial stuff that he's been saying that's becoming incriminating. Let's not forget also that he had Russians into the White House and shut that entire meeting out to the American media and the American public. And you wonder, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. No, Michael, I'm sorry, we're out of time. But yes, what the hell is going on? Why is it that, the Russian press was invited in, but not the American press? It's like, what is Donald trying to tell us? I don't know. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls after this. And welcome back. Jake, watching Free Speech TV in Las Vegas. Hey, Jake, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I've called before on this topic, and I still don't understand how it's possible to not have factions and political parties.
I'm not sure I have, other than having a single-party state, which is not something that I'm a fan of. I don't know how to do that either.
Well, haven't you? I know you talked about Jefferson and Madison and Hamilton about the evils of that system, or the
Madison. Federalist Number 10 is a whole rant about the evil of faction. Now, in Federalist Number 10, Madison identified faction very specifically as a special interest group whose interests did not coincide with the interests of the general populace of the nation. So I think you could say today, under Madison's definition of faction, pretty much every group that is lobbying Congress right now, or at least the for-profit groups that are lobbying Congress, arguably are factions by Madison and Jefferson's definition. Political parties they were concerned about, and their biggest concern was that political parties would come under the influence of factions. They differentiated between the two. And they didn't really know how to prevent that from happening, so they tried to argue that we just shouldn't have political parties. And George Washington did not run as a Federalist, although by the end of his second term, he was referring to himself as a Federalist. Well, everybody was referring to themselves as small f Federalists back then. In other words, believing in a federal system, which the Constitution did in replacing the Articles of Incorporation, which was not a federal system. It was a state-based system with basically an interstate trade agreement, which was the Articles of Confederation. But, doing away with political parties, I don't know how to do that. I think that we need to open up more political parties. And the way that you do that is with proportional representation, like most other countries around the world have, or both, do away with first past the poll, winner take all voting, and replace it with instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting, I believe is what they call it in Australia and New Zealand, where people can say, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. And so if your first choice for vote doesn't get counted, or if that person doesn't, hit the 15% threshold or whatever it may be, then your second choice becomes your vote. And then you can have multiple political parties. And we have that, for example, in place in San Francisco right now. It's in about 300 communities around the country. In every instance, it was the Green Party who made it happen. The Democrats and Republicans don't particularly like this. But I think it's a great thing, and I think that we should do it. That would open up the political party process. And with regard to faction, the way that you shut down factions is you overturn the Supreme Court decision, and MoveToAmend.org is doing the yeoman's work on that. And that is, you pass a constitutional amendment that says corporations are not people and money is not speech. And basically overturn about a half a dozen, well, actually it's been over 30 now, Supreme Court decisions going all the way back to 1886, arguably back to 1815, back to the Dartmouth case, which was the first one in which John Marshall suggested that a corporation should have the right to speak. Anyhow, Jake, thanks a lot for the call. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and George in East Amherst, New York, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, George, what's up?
Hey, I just want to take you off speaker. Sorry, I was waiting.
That's quite all right.
I
understand.
Better? Hi. Okay, so I'm unfortunately I'm not. What I'd like to say is thank you for all you do. First of all, I was one of these apathetic people 5 years ago who wasn't interested in politics in the least, and listening to your show and being educated by you has gotten me interested in the whole political system again.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So mine's kind of a light subject. What I'm doing to get ready for the impeachment of Trump. I went out and spent almost $1,000 and had a bunch of signs made. I had them designed, and I had purchased all the shipping materials, and I'm selling them on Amazon at my cost. In fact, I'm losing money when they go to California because of the shipping costs. So if you search, if it's in the sign says "Save America, Impeach Trump." So if you search on Amazon.com for "Save Impeach Trump" signs, you'll see my sign there, and I hope everybody buys them.
Okay, George. Good luck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
That was your message? Okay.
That was it.
Good luck.
Thank
I wish you well. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Robert in Milford, California. Hey, Robert. What's on your mind today?
Hello. This is Robert from Milford, as you so rightly said. And I really enjoy your program. I enjoy free speech and free speech TV, because otherwise we'd only have real news, Fox News.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. So what'd you call about?
Well, Medicare testing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, drug testing Medicare recipients? Yeah, we're gonna debate that in about 15 minutes.
Okay, should I call back?
No, it's fine. You can put your 2 cents on the table right now. No problem.
I don't have 2 cents. Anyway.
You know what I mean.
I'm on Social Security. I'm very mentally ill, but I manage my illness through a lot of medication, and part of that wellness plan is marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to have my medication, my other medication that I get from a doctor, or I'll just totally lose it, right? And but with the medication and then with the marijuana, it helps my PTSD.
Okay.
And it doesn't send me into psychosis or anything. It really helps me.
Wow.
So without the marijuana, I'm kind of screwed because I'm very depressed all the time. And with it, if they test me, am I going to get thrown off of my psych meds and go end up in a hospital?
Yeah. Well, that's, if you lived in Wisconsin, that's what would happen. Scott Walker has this bizarre notion that anybody who gets Medicaid should be drug tested, and if they show positive for drugs, they should lose access to their Medicaid. Medicaid, of course, pays for your health care, and this assumes that using drugs is a moral failing, not a medical issue. And it's just the idea of proposing it shows how twisted and essentially evil Scott Walker's thought processes are. If drug addiction is, and I think there's a broad consensus about this, if drug addiction is a medical issue and best treated by medical professionals, whether it's psychologists, psychotherapists, addiction counselors, physicians, physicians who can prescribe things, whether it's medical marijuana or something else, if addiction is an illness and requires treatment, then why on God's green earth would you say to somebody who presents with addiction, with drug use, and that's you and I are talking pot here. It's damn near impossible to get addicted to pot, but still, let's say drug abuse is a mental is a mental issue. If somebody's presenting with substance abuse issue, illegal substances in their blood, that should, in my opinion, that should double the ease with which they get Medicaid, not throw them off the program. Because otherwise they're going to go to the other place where most mental illness is treated in the United States. That's called our jails. More than half of all the people in our jails nationwide are mentally ill, and that's why they're there, and they shouldn't be there. And so, right. Robert, you identified a really important point, and I'll be revisiting that in a few minutes with a conservative. So, Robert, I'm going to move along, but thank you for the call, and thanks for sharing your story with us. Nice to hear from you. Steve in Van Buren, Missouri. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Yes, thank you for having me on, and I really enjoy your show. I wanted to say about 6 months ago I turned 65 and got the best birthday present of my life, Medicare.
Yeah.
But recently, my mother-in-law, who's on Medicare, needed some help in literally thousands of dollars for dental care, and I'm wondering why dental care is not covered by Medicare. Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, it has to do with the way that dentistry and the dental profession and the dental lobby have evolved over the years. Dentists have been successful in keeping themselves separate from physicians and keeping dentistry as largely a cash-only business, and have fought efforts to have it incorporated in many of these programs. And then, of course, you've got the people who don't think that the program should be expanded. The Scott Ryans of the world, they don't even think that, if you're on Medicare, half the things that Medicare provides should be provided, much less dental or mental health or vision, things like that. Bernie was pretty outspoken about adding dental care to Medicare and Medicaid. And in fact, back,
10 years ago or so on this program. You know, and, there was a series of Brunch with Bernie's where he had legislation to expand Medicaid and Medicare to include dental, and was working on that, you know, really aggressively. He tried to get it into Obamacare. I think he was unsuccessful in that regard. But that's the story, Steve, as I understand it. It has to do with the history of the dental industry, essentially, and that they want to keep it that way. Steve, got to move along, but thank you for the call. Dan in Grapeview, Washington. Hey, Dan, what's on your mind?
Yes, first-time caller, Tom.
Thank you, Dan.
A little nervous. I have worked and am working as a private air traffic controller here in the United States. I work for a foreign for-profit corporation. And out of the three companies that are working under contracts in the United States, I have worked for two of the three.
So these companies provide controllers to federal ATC facilities, or is this for the military?
That's right. They are FAA facilities that are manned by private for-profit corporations. There are some 200 and some odd facilities across the country.
So we've already partially privatized the FAA, or at least the FAA's staff.
Well, they're not staffed by FAA controllers. They're staffed by contract private.
Right. That's what I mean. So they haven't yet taken over the facilities, but they have taken over the staffing.
Yes. The facilities largely are still maintained by FAA personnel. But what I wanted to say was I've worked in this business for many years. And this is strictly my opinion, but in the 6 facilities that I have worked in throughout my career, every one of them was understaffed. And I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the facilities that I worked in, when we took over, it was manned by FAA air traffic control controllers. Their complement was 10 controllers and a full-time manager to run the facility. We came in with 4 controllers and a part-time manager, which is to say that the manager was required to work 20 of their 40 hours a week working traffic, and the other 20 work down in the office performing the same functions that a full-time manager would have to do.
Wow. See, this is, you know, the studies that show that when you privatize a government function, it costs 83% more than it used to cost because the private company has to skim all that money off the top and pay their executives and pay their marketing and you know, all their bureaucratic overhead and pay their investors and everything. And so you're saying that this private company that you work for that provides staff, you know, controllers to the FAA, that wow, they laid off 10 federal employees as controllers and brought in 4 contract employees as to do the exact same job?
Tom, they did lay off the FAA controllers. Those FAA controllers were moved up to busier facilities in the FAA.
I see.
Okay? And I'm telling you, I don't know where those numbers come from, because remember that when you replace a government employee with a contract employee, the government no longer has to pay for those government employees' retirement benefits.
Right. Dan, I'm sorry, we're out of time.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. And welcome back. Free Speech TV, this is the last day this week. I think we're going to continue next week, but hey, help us hit some goals here. By the way, great news. A donor named Steve has put up and thank you, Steve, has put up a $10,000 matching pledge, which means that your gift, every donation up to $10,000 will be doubled. This is really a big deal. So call now, 877-378-8669, and you know, your $10 becomes $20, your $100 becomes $200, your $500 becomes $1,000. What, you know, ultimately, not specifically for the purposes of the gifts of the swag, but you know, in terms of what ends up with Free Speech TV. So this is great news. And hopefully it'll help us get a little bit back closer toward meeting our goals for this fund drive. I mean, we're still way behind. So please call now, 877-378-8669. With a $60 gift, you get a Constitution of the United States from the ACLU, complete with instructions of, you know, how to react if you are stopped by the police. Plus, we've got these cards for LGBT students at college and for protesters at demonstrations. Know Your Rights, published by the ACLU. So, so you know what your rights are. That's with a $60 gift, or $5 a month for a year. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for a year, you get a copy of Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? And a pocket constitution, and the Know Your Rights at Protest, or the LGBTQ Know Your Rights, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $360 gift, which is $30 a month, the $240 would be $20 a month. With a $360 gift, you get the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the U.S., the Voices of the People's History, the Pocket Constitution, the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $1,000 gift, come on in, drop by Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful city, beautiful time of year. The summer here is just extraordinary. And it can get hot, but I kind of enjoy that, actually. Come on down to Washington, D.C. or up or over or whatever it may be for you, and I'll buy you lunch. So, but the important thing is not so much, what kind of swag you're going to get, what kind of gifts you can make off with, but that you're helping keep in place independent media. For example, yesterday, the House of Representatives, I talked about this several times yesterday. In fact, I gave out the number to the Congressional Switchboard and asked people to call your member of Congress because Congress, the House of Representatives yesterday voted to roll back Dodd-Frank and basically eliminate or defenestrate the consumer protection, Financial Consumer Protection Bureau, Elizabeth Warren's creation that has recovered more than $20 billion in money stolen from you and me, from people who have invested their money with people in the investment industry, and we've gotten ripped off. That agency has recovered over $20 billion and given it back to consumers. They recovered that money from the big banks.
big banks are not happy about that. So they go to their Republican toadies and they say, pass a bill that does away with this thing. You know, we'll not someone, rid me of this meddlesome priest. Or was it tiresome, whatever it was. And so the Republicans say, well, of course, Mr. Billionaire, we'd be more than glad to help. Right. So that message somehow didn't happen yesterday on the corporate media. Nobody talked about it. As I said, we talked about it here. I'm sure it was talked about on other programs on Free Speech TV. There were a number of things that happened yesterday. Ryan Zinke used to be the congressman from, Montana, I think. And he's now the Secretary of the Interior. He wants to cut by 80% the programs that have to do with climate change relative to the Department of Interior. And he was being questioned by Congress yesterday, and he was going on and on about how, well, we don't know, the science is not conclusive, and we're, giving this normal climate denier BS. And it got no coverage. Nobody in the media picked it up. It happened after we got off the air. I didn't mention it on this program. I'm mentioning it now. But, I mean, there's stuff going on that we just, we're not being told about in the corporate media. But Free Speech TV is here. Free Speech TV is doing an extraordinary job with a wide variety of diverse programming and, news-based stuff. This network is really important. And you can be proud to be a part of it. So call now, 877-378-8669. Call now, please. Make a contribution. Whatever works for you, please.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us, Julio Rivera. He is the editorial director at the Reactionary Times, a columnist for Newsmax, Right Wing News, and Politichicks. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
the Politichick.
Okay.
And I identify as one, I guess.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Reactionarytimes.com, and people can tweet you at, oh yeah, it's Julio.
Yes, and at Reactionary TMS.
Okay. All right. You got it. So I don't understand this. Scott Walker wants to drug test people on Medicaid in Wisconsin. First of all, the majority of people on Medicaid fall into three categories. You have children. They make up about a third of Medicaid recipients. You have elderly people in nursing homes. They make up about a third of Medicaid recipients. And then you have the working poor, basically, people making too little to qualify for Obamacare.
Well, there's also the unemployed poor as well.
Well, Tom. Absolutely, the unemployed poor as well, sure. And which is really a fairly small fraction of Medicaid recipients. It's probably 3 or 4 or 5%. But
I believe it's a lot larger than that.
Well, let's say it's 20%. Whatever it is, Scott Walker says he wants to drug test these folks to determine whether or not they can get health care. Now, I don't get the rationale behind that. I thought that the whole idea of conservatives was small government, less intrusion in our lives. Why do you want to force, you must pee in a cup, into the process? Why do you want to put the government between me and, if I'm a resident of Wisconsin on Medicaid, between me and my doctor? Why is it that I've got to go to the government first and pee in a cup?
Well, for a lot of reasons, Tom. First of all, the cost of actually providing health care to these people goes up when people don't take care of their bodies. So if these people are on drugs, especially hard drugs, it may present more cardiovascular problems. They may have problems with their respiratory system if they're smoking meth or whatever the case may be. In order to keep the actual cost of treating people down, you have to give them drug tests. But on top of that, there's also the element of there's a lot of people abusing the system. There are a lot of people who are taking money from, programs like Medicaid, welfare, food stamps, and then they're spending a lot of that money on drugs. Listen, I come from Paterson, New Jersey.
That's a
I've
terrible
seen
thing.
it with my own two eyes, Tom.
Yeah.
People spending $40 to buy food stamps, $40 worth of food vouchers or whatever you want to call it, to buy a $20 bag of crack. It does happen.
Right. No, I'm sure it does, Julio, and I'm not offended by it, and I'm not particularly bothered by it. What strikes me as weird, though, is that because that's human nature. People, there's always going to be, in any program that you set up, unemployment, whatever it may be, there's always going to be 2-3% of people who are just like, they're not completely all there, and yeah, they're gonna try to abuse the system. That doesn't mean you tear the system down.
You know what it is?
But what I'm baffled by is your statement that if somebody's using drugs, they're more likely to be in need of medical attention. And what Scott Walker wants to do is, once he's determined that they're using drugs, he wants to cut them off medical care. How does that make sense?
It does make sense, because if anything, it's a slap in the face that they need to hopefully get off of drugs, and then they can reapply to the program.
So your theory is that drug addiction is a moral failure that can be treated with a slap in the face, rather than that it is an addiction, a mental or a physiological problem that requires therapy, medication.
Well, there is, and there's a lot of programs, and all states have programs to combat this drug addiction problem, which not coincidentally is being caused by this whole open borders policy that we had under Barack Obama. All these years of drug dealers coming into our country and infecting our kids, making them into drug addicts. Listen, like a state like New Jersey,
Julio, you can try and change the subject if you want back to Obama, but Obama's not our president anymore, and
thank God.
Whatever you want to say, I don't care. But I still don't get it. How can you say that somebody who has a drug dependency problem, a medical problem, should be punished for that by losing access to the health care? You're right. There are many states that have good treatment programs for opiate addictions. They're all funded by Medicaid.
Exactly. That's the reason
Scott
why
Walker's
we got
saying, if you've got a problem, we're going to kick you off the program.
Sure that we're not wasting it, Tom. Think about it. If 5 people, let's say just 5 people, a small handful of people, wind up with catastrophic health care problems, that can cost millions to the American taxpayer.
Right. So wouldn't you want them to have access to care early on?
And to make sure that the people receiving the benefits are less likely to have those catastrophic health care.
Well, we know, Julio, that because of the legislation that Ronald Reagan championed in 1986 that requires hospitals' emergency rooms to take people and requires hospitals to admit people, whether they have insurance or not, if they're genuinely sick or at death's door sort of thing, then by taking people who are drug users, who are, I agree with you, at much greater risk of serious illness, you're taking people who are drug users and denying them primary care, denying them treatment for their drug addiction, any kind of treatment outside of prison for their drug addiction, that they're more likely to end up in the ER costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, it makes no sense. It seems like a stupid policy.
They temporarily lose their benefits, Tom, and it sends a message. People have to clean up. If they expect to get a handout from the taxpayer, I don't even like to say from the government, because the government only gets their money from us. If they want us,
we are the government,
our American taxpayers' help, they have to do their part, which is to stay off of drugs. I mean, how hard is that to grasp as a concept, Tom?
Well, have you ever been addicted to drugs, Julio?
I've drank a lot and stuff like I would never call myself a drug addict or anything like that, but
so you've never had.
It is hard for some people, but you have to buck up at a certain point and start to take better care of yourself, especially as you get older, because it's only going to cost more, even your out-of-pocket expenses. Obviously, with Medicaid, maybe not, but how about we start thinking about the working class people who are actually paying into that system, subsidizing all of these people?
You don't pay into Medicaid.
No, I don't. I know you don't. But what I'm saying, but the people that fund Medicaid are the working class people who are also covering their own insurance while subsidizing others.
So?
What do you mean, so?
I mean,
That's important.
we're a society.
That's the reason why we have. Listen, people talk about a war on women, a war between classes, a war on races and all this and that.
Are you saying there's something wrong with a country taking care of its?
Are the working class people who are living at the same level, unfortunately, as the subsidized people?
No, they're not. If they were, they would be eligible for these programs. First of all.
No, but they're not. Because
then they're not living at the same level.
Listen, I see it all the time. I still have a lot of friends that live in the inner city. They live in a building right next door to them. Somebody's on Section 8 getting food stamps and welfare, and they don't lift a finger. Meanwhile, my friends in the same building are working 50-hour weeks to keep that roof over their head. There's no subsidy.
And who do you think has a higher quality of life?
They both, they're pretty much similar at that point. In fact, the people who don't work probably have a whole lot less stress because they sit around in their apartment all day smoking.
So you're trying to turn this into an argument about we should not have a welfare state at all? Is that what you're saying? Because I'd like to get back to the issue of is health care a right or a privilege?
I wanted to bring this up on your show last time, or 2 times ago. In the 1990s, Newt Gingrich instituted these welfare to work programs. We should do that today and get people off of their butts working. Once they start working, then they'll probably want a better job that pays a little more if they have to work.
Well, right now, Julio, we may have an agreement here. I agree with Franklin Roosevelt that the best welfare program is a job. But in the context of that, you also have to acknowledge that capitalism occasionally stutters. In fact, typically every 6 years, you get a mini recession. Every 2 or 3 of those, every second or third of those becomes a more severe recession. And every 80 years, you have a Great Depression. I mean, this is how capitalism works.
A lot of it has to do with overt government
let me finish this thought, would you please? So if capitalism is going to periodically fail and not be able to provide full employment, which is the case in much of the United States. I mean, there's parts of West Virginia, there's parts of Pennsylvania, there's parts of Michigan where I grew up, where there simply are not jobs. I mean, you can go in there and you can say, I won't give you health care, I won't give you food, I won't give you housing, I'm going to come over to your house and kick you in the ass 3 times every morning, and they're still not going to be able to find a job because there's no damn job waiting for them. And what Roosevelt said was that the government should be the employer of last resort. And he put hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people to work through the WPA and the CCC. They regained their dignity. They were able to re-enter the middle class. And those programs are all dead now. So if you're agreeing with me that a job is the best welfare program, then I'm assuming you're agreeing with me that the government should play the role of employer of last resort if you don't want it to play the role of provider of welfare.
Well, what I would like to see is the government stay out of the private sector as much as possible. We need the tax reform that Donald Trump campaigned for.
We have over $2 trillion worth of infrastructure that needs to be fixed. I'm not talking about the private sector here, Julio.
But we're talking about jobs. Who's going to create the jobs? I want the private sector creating the jobs, not necessarily government.
But the private sector doesn't give a damn about creating jobs. The private, the only time the private sector creates a job is if it can make more profit for the stockholders or the CEOs. The private sector.
Yeah, but not every business is a publicly traded mega conglomerate.
Even private companies. I don't hire people because I'm sitting around thinking, gee, I think I'll create some jobs today. I hire people because I have things that I need to get done. And I mean, that's true of every business.
Exactly. They can afford
so back to what do you do when there's nobody hiring? And hiring people you've got $2 trillion worth of infrastructure that needs to be fixed. You've got all kinds of incredible green projects that could be done all over the country, another couple $1 trillion. We could put everybody in America to work tomorrow, just greening this country and getting us off our addiction to Saudi oil.
And who's going to pay for it, though?
Well, that's what you have tax revenues for. I mean, the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System.
What you do is you let the private
Dwight Eisenhower more of their
borrowed
money. He took us to 129% of GDP in debt to pay for the Eisenhower Highway System. And for every dollar that he put into that thing, we've probably gotten over $100 back in added taxes over the years. There's, public works systems are investments. They're not costs. Anyhow, we're out of time here. Julio Rivera, editorial director at Reactionary Times, columnist at Newsmax, Right Wing News and Politichicks, and reactionarytimes.com. Tweet at, it's Julio, and Reactionary TMS. Julio, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thank you as always, Tom. Have a great
Good talking with you. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Okay, I'm still struggling to understand the logic here. Maybe y'all can help me. We'll pick up your calls after the break.